Thorin II, son of Thrain II, grandson of Thor, also known as Thorin Oakenshield, was a dwarf and king of Durin's folk. His name derives from Dvergatal, the Dwarven reckoning, meaning bold in common tongue. He had two younger siblings, brother Frerin and sister Dís. Thorin himself was born in the Lonely Mountain, where his grandfather Thror was king under the mountain. Since his youth he favored a sky-blue hood with a long silver tassel and yellow stockings. When Thorin was only 24 years old, the dragon Smaug descended upon Erebor in flames. The town of Dale was left in ruins, while many dwarfs were killed inside the mountain. The king Thror, with his son Thrain, escaped by the secret door. Thorin was one of the few lucky dwarfs who were outside Erebor when the dragon arrived, and thus he survived. But he, as well as the other survivors, were driven into exile, heading south and west, ending up in Dunland. Thorin grew up to become quite tall for a dwarf, a formidable warrior, archer, and skilled military leader during this period. As time went by, Thorin's grandfather, Thror, became disillusioned with the current situation and went to reclaim the original home of their clan, the Longbirds, called Khazad-dûm by the dwarfs, and Moria by others, and infested currently by orcs. He entered this old mansion via the eastern gate, but ended up murdered and desecrated by Azog the Orc. Thror's companion, Nar, was allowed to return to Thrain with the news of what happened. Thus the war of the dwarfs and orcs began. The war was long and hard, fought in the dark tunnels under the mountains, ultimately ending with the Battle of Azanulbizar, in front of the eastern gates of Moria. Thorin, as well as his father, was wounded in the battle, while Thorin's brother Frerin was killed. When Thorin's shield broke, he used an oak branch instead to block the blows of his foes. Despite the final victory and Azog's death, the dwarves refused to reclaim Moria because Durin's Bane was still there waiting. In memory of this battle, Thorin swore always to bear a plain shield of oak with no device on it until he should be hailed king. And thus he earned the epithet Oakenshield. After the battle, Thorin, with his father Thrain and the rest of the survivors, returned home. But they were dissatisfied with their life in Dunland and began to wander Eriador before finally settling in the Blue Mountains. Here they prospered, although they worked more with iron and coal than with gold and silver. The dwarves were also slowly increasing their numbers, albeit very slowly. But they still dreamed of the return to the Lonely Mountain. Especially Thrain was constantly thinking about the hoard Smaug has stolen, and so he set out to return to Erebor. Thorin, aged 95 then, was never to see his father again. When the news arrived of Thrain's disappearance, Thorin became the king of the Longbirds. He was already respected by many throughout Middle-earth as a smart, proud, brave, intelligent, vengeful, sophisticated, and noble dwarf, who was willing to give himself up for a just cause, although he shared also the greed and extensive love for gold of his family. His people were content with the living in the Blue Mountains, but as years waned, Thorin's desire to return to Erebor grew. His fortunes changed one lucky meeting with Gandalf in Bree. Thorin invited Gandalf to his halls, where they continued to discuss their worries and hopes regarding Erebor. In the end, it was Gandalf who formulated a plan how to get rid of Smaug and the threat he posed if he joined with Sauron. Gandalf advised Thorin to use stealth rather than force in his quest to regain Erebor, knowing about the map he got from Thrain. Therefore, he wanted Thorin to take a burglar with him, although Thorin was contemptuous about the notion, and being stubborn, as most dwarfs are, it took some time to persuade him. The wizard then instructed the dwarfs to meet him in the Shire, and look for a door containing a sign of the thief looking for a job. Thus Thorin and his contingent of 12 found themselves in Bag End, where they tried to persuade Bilbo Baggins to join them, although they were unsure if he was the right guy. Thorin even thought that Gandalf was mocking him and trying to make him look foolish with the notion of taking this burglar along. He should have been drawing plans for battle and war, he thought. Only after Gandalf revealed the map of Tror and the key to the secret door he had from Thrain, which Thorin promptly hung upon a golden chain around his neck, was Thorin convinced that quest had a real chance of success, and that the thief would be valuable. And so Thorin set off for the Lonely Mountain, with Gandalf, Bilbo, Fili, Kili, Balin, Dwalin, Dori, Nori, Ori, Oin, Gloin, Bifur, Bofur, and Bombur as companions. Shortly after leaving Bree, the last civilized region west of the mountains, they encountered 3 wild trolls. In their cave, the dwarfs found not only a small hoard of treasure, but also 2 swords from the First Age, forged in Gondolin, the hidden kingdom of the Noldor. Gandalf acquired Glamdring, and Thorin took Orcrist. These swords had famous history, which Elrond in Rivendell revealed them. He was also able to read the hidden moon letters on Tror's map, which informed the dwarfs what they should do when they find the hidden door. Their adventures continued after leaving Rivendell. In Misty Mountains they were ambushed by goblins, on the eastern side of the mountains by wargs, only to be saved by great eagles. They met the skin-changer Beorn, dared to go through the dark forest of Mirkwood, where the giant spiders captured all the dwarfs except Thorin. Thorin was meanwhile imprisoned by wood elves, and the sword Orcrist was taken from him. He met his companions again after Bilbo rescued the dwarfs from spiders, only for them to be captured again, this time by the wood elves too. But Bilbo found a way how to escape the prison and reach Esgaroth, this closest settlement to the Lonely Mountain. Thorin was greeted warmly in the lake town, even hailed as the returned king under the mountain. Soon he and his companions reached the Lonely Mountain itself, and found the secret door, using the key to open it. Now Thorin sent Bilbo into the tunnel to carry out his duty as their esteemed burglar. This enraged Smaug, who sought to kill them all at first, and then took his vengeance on the Lake Man. The furious dragon was slain by Bard the Bowman while destroying the town on the Long Lake. Upon hearing about the death of Smaug, Thorin ordered the dwarfs to fortify the main gate to the mountain. Soon after, the host of wood elves and lake men approached the mountain, under the leadership of Thranduil, the king of the wood elves, and Bard, the dragon slayer. Pride and greed overcame Thorin, and he refused to consider any claim Bard had to a share of the treasure. Therefore the elves and men pronounced the mountain under siege. But Thorin was able to send message to his cousins, especially Dain Ironfoot, who immediately went to his rescue with 50 iron-hilled dwarfs. Bilbo, who did not like the prospect of the battle in the least, gave Bard the Arkenstone, which he had been hiding from Thorin and the dwarfs so far, to use it as a bargaining chip for making a deal with Thorin. This infuriated Thorin, and led to Bilbo being cast out of the company. It seemed that nothing can stop the bloodshed between dwarfs, elves, and lakemen now. However, all disputes were cast aside when the army of orcs and wargs, led by Bolg, son of Azog, suddenly arrived. The 3 quarreling leaders were forced to unite against this common enemy. Thus the battle of 5 armies had begun. As the battle drew on, the prospect of defeat of the united armies drew closer and closer. At the key moment, Thorin suddenly attacked from the front gate at the head of his companions. His courageous assault rallied elves, men, and dwarfs, who all rushed to him. But still there were not enough allies to turn the tide of the battle. Even the arrival of great eagles was not enough to break the endless masses of orcs. Only after Beorn arrived in their rear and attacked Bolg's guard, bringing mortally wounded Thorin out of the fray at first and killing Bolg himself later, the army of elves, men, and dwarfs emerged triumphant. Nonetheless, the price of victory was high, with File and Kile killed among many others. Thorin, on his deathbed, apologized to Bilbo for his recent angry words and deeds. He commended Bilbo's good character, courage, and friendship, as well as his values. With that said, he died, as an undisputed king under the mountain. He was laid to rest deep under the lonely mountain, with Arkenstone upon his chest and Orcrist upon his tomb.